Hi, friend, and welcome to the Message Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Graham, a wedding photographer and lifestyle blogger who just launched my own magazine, Your Message Mag. I'm determined to help women just like you lean into the messes of their lives and find the message they have to share. Here we believe that secrecy helps no one, but transparency and vulnerability have the potential to help many. Get ready for some encouragement, to be inspired, and to be given all the tools you need to share the unique message you have to share with those who need to hear it most. This is the Message Podcast. Do you know what your love language is? My love language is definitely gift giving. I love giving gifts, and my favorite way to give gifts is purchasing gifts through Artifact Uprising, an online printing company where you can create customized gifts for those that you love. Throughout the whole year being a new mom, I've had parents and in-laws asking for their gifts to be photos of Beckley, and Artifact Uprising makes that super simple. Plus, for my dad on Father's Day, since it was his first Father's Day as a grandpa, I created a personalized board book full of pictures of him and Beckley straight off of my phone. Nothing fancy, guys. And Artifact Uprising makes it super simple to upload those photos, add them to a book template, and then print it, order it, and so it's ready to go to give to the ones that you love. I have a lot of friends ask me where I recommend getting photo books or printing, and if you're looking to do it yourself, the DIY method, then Artifact Uprising is always the place that I recommend. This is even the place where I go to purchase gifts that I get for my couples. Go to katielaurengraham.com/artifactuprising for $20 off your first order. Again, that is katielaurengraham.com/artifactuprising for $20 off your first order. You can also click the link in my show notes. Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Message Podcast. So a little fun fact about me, I have actually tried to start and launch a podcast 3 separate times, which is so embarrassing for me to say now. I really can't believe that I've tried it 3 separate times. And every single time I would go as far as recording, creating the graphics, planning out the content, uploading the actual audio that I edited to the software that hosts it. And I would never actually push live on those past podcasts. And it never really felt right. And finally, I was working on Your Message Mag, my new magazine that I've just launched at the beginning of this month. And as I was preparing for that launch, I really felt this nudge where I felt like God was telling me, now is the right time. Now is the time to do this podcast, and I want it to be in accompaniment with this magazine. So here we are. We are actually finally pushing live. 4th time's a charm. So in this first episode, I just want to share with you what my goal is for this podcast, what you can expect from it, and all the important things like that. And then there are going to be other episodes uploaded at the same time as this one, so that you don't have to wait till next week to be able to listen to episodes. I'm launching this with episodes ready and there for you to dive into and listen to. So after you've listened to this episode, be sure to check out the other episodes that I've gone ahead and uploaded and posted today. I'm so excited to just dive into all of this content. But anyways, let's talk about what my goal is for this podcast, for the Message Podcast. So my number one goal is to encourage you. For you who have been following me, for those of you who have purchased the magazine and you find this podcast through the magazine, or for any of you who just happen to stumble across this podcast in whatever way you do, I really just want to encourage you. That is something that brings me a lot of joy in life. It's just encouraging people. I also really want to share my stories so that you can feel less alone in your own life. This is something that I feel very passionately about, and you're going to hear me say it over and over again in just about every episode. I really believe in the value and the power of transparency and authenticity, and that if you are willing to be transparent and share what you're going through, you have the potential to help people. Whereas if you just sit there and hide your stories and not actually share anything, you're not going to help anybody. That doesn't do anything except for serve yourself. And protect your ego, protect your pride. And so I am a big believer in laying your pride down, laying it down on the ground, and being willing to put yourself out there and share the darker parts, the sadder parts, the harder parts, the ugly parts. Because when you share those, at a minimum, someone else is going to know that they aren't alone in their own ugly parts of their lives. And at the best, you're going to help them and encourage them and perhaps change their life. So I really want this podcast to be a place where I can share my stories. I can be vulnerable with you and hopefully do that for you. At the least, let you know that you aren't alone, and at the best, maybe change your life. Another goal for this podcast is I want to give you the tools you need to share your own message with those who need to hear it the most. I am a firm believer, and we're going to dive into this, but I am a firm believer that everybody has a message to share. And we're going to dive into what a message is later on in this episode. So just give me a minute. But I believe that everybody, you included, you who is listening to this podcast right now, has a message to be shared with the world. Now, when I say sharing with the world, it could be as simple as sharing it with a sibling or sharing it with a friend who needs to hear it, or starting a business where the main focus of that business is sharing that message with as many people as possible. It can be anywhere on that spectrum, but sharing it with the world, not holding on to that message, holding on to that story tightly to protect yourself, but having open hands and willingly sharing it in order to help people. And I want to give you the tools you need to be able to share that message with people in an effective manner, no matter where on the spectrum you want to fall as far as how far you want that message to go. Have you ever felt like you're called to more in life? Do you desire to encourage others? Have you experienced a mess in life that you wish to share with others to help them grow and feel less alone? I created Your Message Mag for driven, encouraging, and servant-hearted people just like you. Your Message Mag is my new lifestyle magazine focused on bringing encouragement and inspiration into the lives of others through impactful storytelling and seasonal content. Each issue features guest writers with powerful, impactful stories to tell. Get ready to experience the first magazine you'll not only read cover to cover, but will also change your life. Subscribe to Your Message Mag at yourmessagemag.com. Again, go to yourmessagemag.com to get your first copy. The link is also in the show notes. So that is a goal that I have. And then the final goal that I have for this podcast is I want to have a point of connection between the magazine issues and have a level of unfiltered communication that isn't possible within the magazine. So Your Message Mag is my brand new magazine that I've just launched at the beginning of this month. When I'm recording this, we are heading up to December of 2021. It'll be launched beginning of December 2021. So when you're listening to this now, it will have launched just like 2 weeks ago. And that is going to be a quarterly magazine. So 4 times a year, there will be a brand new issue put out. But that means there's 3 months between each issue. And I don't want the only point of connection that I have with you guys to be in those quarterly issues. I want to be able to help you guys and serve you guys consistently, even between those issues. And so that's the point of this podcast, to be able to have that point of connection between the magazine issues. And also the magazine, it is my baby. It is precious to me. I am so proud of it. I love it. And I have big dreams for that magazine. But there's only so much that I can put into that. Plus it's only written. And so there is a level of professionalism and I guess level of quality that has to be, or level of, how do I want to say this? Basically, I can't say just whatever I want in that. I have to keep it somewhat formal because it is a written piece that's being put out. Or at least that is a level of quality that I want to maintain for the magazine. And also, you can't hear my voice. It's all written. So though I can do my best to let you know what kind of tone I'm writing in, that is ultimately left up to your interpretation. Whereas when you're listening to this podcast, I can say whatever I believe I need to say on here, and you can hear my voice, you can hear my tone, and you can get to know me and this business and the desires that we have for this business in a way that isn't possible with the magazine. So that is another big goal with this podcast. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea as to why I'm even here, why I'm even sharing. Ultimately, it's to help you. It is to serve you. This is a podcast motivated by you. So this podcast, what are we even going to talk about on this? The magazine is all about storytelling, encouraging others in hardships, and inspiring others to share their own messages. So in accompaniment with that, this podcast is all about giving you the tools you need to take that next step and share your own message, while also sharing some of my own experiences and messages along the way. So on this podcast, I'm going to share some of my own stories, my own messages, my own hardships I've gone through. I'm going to be vulnerable with you, but I'm also going to give you the practical tips and the tools that you need in order to be able to discover your message, to share your message, to effectively put it out there, and to live a life of service to other people, a life where you aren't constantly living for yourself, where you're protecting yourself, you're only thinking of yourself, but you're living a life where you're thinking, how can I use my life, my experiences, what I've gone through, to my gifts to help somebody else and live a life thinking of other people. That's going to be, all the content is going to be focused around that. So I've talked about this idea of a message a few times. And so I kind of want to touch base on what exactly a message is. And you'll notice if you look at Your Message Mag, or the name of this podcast, Your Message Podcast, you'll notice that in the word message, mess has parentheses around it. And that is to put an emphasis on the word mess in message. And so to give it a quick summary, here's an excerpt. I have a really hard time saying that word. Here is a snippet from this first issue of Your Message Mag. It says, "Life is messy. It's complicated. It's challenging. It's not a matter of if messages will happen, but when they will. However, with every mess, there is a message. Every good story has conflict, and every message worth sharing has come from some sort of mess. Without the bad, how can you appreciate the good? Without the mess, how can you learn the message? These messages are important and not meant to be left quiet. They are meant to be shared." So it is a belief that every message has come from a mess of some sort, be it monumentally big or extraordinarily small. There's messes all over our life, and I believe that in every mess there is a message that can be found, and many of them are meant to be shared. They're meant to be learned from. And so that is what this whole idea of a message is when we're talking about messages in the podcast or in the magazine. So I want to read to you the Your Message Mag manifesto. "We believe in transparency, that being open and honest has the potential to help many, while staying silent has the potential to help none. We believe in the power of storytelling, that ordinary experiences can have a profound effect, that we all have stories to tell, that what may be ordinary for one could be life-changing for another. We believe in embracing our messes and finding the message hidden within them, that in sharing those messages, messes, and everything in between, we can uplift, encourage, and come alongside others where they are. We believe in laying down our pride, and in humility striving to serve one another through our hardships, messes, and ugly moments." That is what Your Message Mag stands for, what we believe in, and it goes the same thing for here at Your Message Podcast. We believe in transparency, storytelling, embracing our messes, and laying down our pride. That is the heart of this podcast. So, here's what I want you to do this week, some homework, if you will. First, go listen to some of my other podcast episodes that I've uploaded today, because I have several waiting there ready for you. Secondly, I would love it if you would screenshot this podcast and share it on Instagram, post it to your stories, and make sure you tag me at Katie Lauren Graham, and so I can see and I can share an excitement that you listened. And make sure that you follow this podcast, that you're subscribed to this podcast. And if you are really feeling motivated and you really want to help out, a huge thing you could do is leave a review. Leaving a review is a huge way to encourage the podcast algorithms, to put this podcast in front of other people, letting the podcast overlords basically know that people are liking this podcast, it will let them know like, oh, we should put it out in front of other people, which enables this podcast to help more people. So screenshot this podcast, share it on Instagram. Make sure you tag me at Katie Lauren Graham. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you never miss a new episode. And be sure to leave a review if you really want to help out. And of course, dive into the other episodes. I am so excited to help you. And if there is anything specific that you would love to have me do a podcast episode on, you can shoot me a DM at Katie Lauren Graham on Instagram. And I will be sure to get back to you on that. All right, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Your Message podcast. Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast and leave a review if you haven't already. This really helps with encouraging the podcast apps to share this with other people to maximize our impact so we can help as many people as possible. Also, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to screenshot this episode and share it on Instagram. Make sure to tag me at Katie Lauren Graham so I can share in the excitement with you. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.